can look long and hard for the historic marker,
He was actually called the Houdini of the time.
but your search would be a fruitless endeavor.
He was definitely my idea of a showman for that time especially.
9th and Grace Streets at Capitol Square.
Absolutely. I think he became sort of a folk hero.
Just happens to be the site of one of the most thrilling and least known chapters in Richmond's storied history.
It was a tremendous spectacle with over 5,000 people.
June 14th, 1918, author Donna Deacon says one man captivates the masses below.
Looking like he's falling a couple of times too. That even made it even more of a kind of moment.
Bill Strother, a wiry 21-year-old, attempts to scale the gleaming new Hotel Richmond.
I'm not sure I could have looked at it.
10 stories.
He just did it with his own bare hands and his regular shoes on his feet.
No rope, no net, and no fear.
He said the key was not to look down, obviously. The key was not to look down.
After 30 minutes, Strother reaches the top.
I'm not sure it was guts. I think you just had to be sort of crazy. I mean,
Deacon says the big-hearted North Carolina native scaled the hotel for philanthropic reasons.
I think he thoroughly enjoyed it.
Strother was collecting money for U.S. soldiers fighting in World War I.
He raised $1,000 that night.
A century after his high-flying fundraiser.
Daredevil doesn't even describe him in my book.
Deacon says the human spider remains largely anonymous.
He just had an extraordinary talent and an extraordinary will to even want to try something like this.
Strother would repeat his stunt over and over.
There you can see him actually climbing a building in New Orleans.
Conquering the Woolworth in New York and Wrigley in Chicago.
Climbed 1,000 buildings in the U.S. and Canada between about 1918 and 1925.
And this is an example of what I would call forgotten history.
The Library of Virginia's Errol Somé.
I think there are some events where Bill Strother was on page one.
Director of the newspaper project says Strother generated lots of publicity in black and white.
You have to remember, there was no internet, there was no TV, probably commercial radio wasn't even really around, so newspapers were the only game in town.
Strother's fame reached new heights when legendary silent film star Harold Lloyd convinced the Daredevil to star alongside him in the iconic movie Safety Last, playing Lloyd's sidekick, Limpy Bill.
He was a master at what he did.
But what moviegoers did not know, Strother also served as Lloyd's stunt double.
It was Bill climbing, but dressed as Harold Lloyd.
It would be Strother's one and only movie credit.
After the film came out, he was actually doing some promotions for the film, climbing at theaters.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
But Strother's most iconic role wouldn't involve going up, but shimmying down the chimney.
This is my sister Judy, and this is me with my Shirley Temple curls that my mother liked.
Just 4 blocks from his original stunt, Strother would thrill legions of Richmonders as Miller & Rose's legendary Santa.
He was there from 1942 to 1956 as Santa Claus.
The Saturday Evening Post even claimed Strother's St. Nick commanded $1,000 a week.
Beautiful Santa Claus, don't you think?
Donna Deacon says Strother set the bar high for all department store Santas.
He changed the whole face of not only the Santa tradition here, but all over the country.
Donna hopes the biography she penned will help shed light on this dynamic figure.
To me, Bill is sort of like an onion, somebody that you would just pull layer after layer after layer.
Sadly, the risk-taker who tempted fate would die in a car crash in 1957 in California.
I think one of the reasons we want to remember Bill is because he was so unique.
62 years after his death, Richmond's most daring exhibitionist still captivates the curious.
Well, you know, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk over there and stand in that corner and look up and try to figure out how he did it.
Bill Strother, from Spider-Man and silent film star to Santa, is finally stepping onto the rungs of history.
The world needed a strong person to do something unusual and something that people could maybe look up to literally and figuratively. He found his calling in that.
Before he died, Bill Strother and his wife ran a small bed and breakfast called the Strother House in Petersburg. Now, as for author Donna Deakins, she made a startling discovery during her research. Donna Strother Deakins learned she is a distant cousin of Bill Strother. Now, you may recognize Donna. She was Miller and Rhodes' famous snow queen from the early 70s through the 1980s. I'm Greg McQuaid, CBS 6 News.